From the station working for you, this is WRTV News at 5:30, streaming now.
And now at 5:30, remembering the Delphi daughters through the sport they both loved, how a community is coming together to lay the groundwork to honor the legacy of the two young girls. And blue Indy cars have been off the streets for months. Now there is a possibility some of their charging stations taking up vacant parking spaces may stay. Dan.
Topping our lineup today, new vaccines are associated with adverse health problems. As scientists develop a COVID vaccine, experts weigh in on whether it's worth the risk. And CEOs cutting their salary may not have been as big of a sacrifice as it first seemed. The new reality check on executive compensation with tens of thousands still out of work. Tens of thousands of students rely on federal work-study to pay for college. For some, it's now in jeopardy. The questions families should be asking to make sure they can keep getting this support safely.
And now at 5:30, a project with plans to support the arts and athletics is on track to open next summer in Carroll County. As WRTV's Rafael Sanchez reports, golfers, bike riders, and volunteers from all corners are behind the park's promise to honor Delphi daughters Abby and Libby.
There were days that this seemed impossible. The Legacy Park, in honor of Abby Williams and Libby German, is taking shape. The amphitheater is in place, and several fields will hear play ball next year.
It's that much closer to people being able to come and enjoy and do the things that both girls enjoy doing.
This project has drawn many people and companies to volunteer muscle power and machines to clear the land. Fundraisers, from multiple bike rides to an annual golf tournament, have raised thousands to pay for services that volunteers could not.
It is a very humbling thing to see all these people come out.
The families of Abby and Libby have moved heaven and earth to get this done. They're also focused on finding the killer of the February 2017 unsolved murders.
Keeping the message out there about this person is important, and because I still think that somebody out there knows something.
In the meantime, this year of construction is committed to the pitch that the park will be a hit and hopes to encourage others that anything is possible.
You can do it. If there's something you want done out there, if there's something you want, if you feel strongly enough about it, it will come about. You can do it. You can get it done.
And Rafael tells us a recent bike ride led by Tina Capps and the Kitley Inn here in Indianapolis recently raised $11,500 for the park. We have a link on the park project and how you can donate in this story on WRTV.com. Kyle, some gray skies out there, and it's been a lot of, is it going to rain? Is it not going to rain? What's going on today?
Yeah, we've had a few showers out there today. Those clouds certainly keeping a lid on temperatures. But as of right now, we're pretty much dry across central Indiana. You can see, though, over the last few hours, some of those showers that we had, even a few rumbles of thunder earlier this afternoon north of the Richmond area. We look down closer to the Ohio River. There's been a complex of thunderstorms. Those are quickly falling apart. Can't entirely rule out a shower around Bedford, Seymour, and possibly into Sullivan, but those are not really likely to make it much further than that. 82 degrees for us right now downtown. We still have plenty of that humidity in the air, which is making it feel like it's close to 90 with a southwest breeze between 5 and 10 miles per hour. A little more sunshine for you around Lafayette and Peru with temperatures in the middle to upper 80s right now. And as we go through this evening, we'll find those temperatures getting back into the upper 70s. Sun sets at 8:23, and then we'll still have those cloudy skies, 78 degrees at 9 o'clock. Going into tomorrow, we do have a slight risk that we could have a few strong to severe storms from Indianapolis northward, a marginal risk to the south. We'll break down that timeline in just a few minutes. Dan.
The Justice Department is opening a civil rights investigation into the shooting of Jacob Blake. The U.S. Attorney's Office and FBI both are working with state law enforcement. Police shot Blake 7 times in the back on Sunday while responding to a domestic dispute. Blake is alive but paralyzed. And players from the NBA as well as other leagues continue to demand change following the shooting in Kenosha. Chris Conti takes a closer look at the impact those boycotts might have on our country's reckoning over race.
With home court advantage taken out of the equation this year because of COVID, the NBA playoffs look nothing like they once did. And Wednesday, the season took yet another dramatic turn as the Milwaukee Bucks boycotted their game to protest the shooting of Jacob Blake in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Eventually, all other games were suspended as well. But what does that mean for this moment?
We've never seen anything like what took place yesterday.
Dwight Lewis is a former civil rights activist and offered some perspective on why players decided to take a stand.
Sometimes you have to do things to get attention, to say that I can't take this anymore. I'm mad as hell and I'm not going to take it anymore.
Dwight says it's about more than the game or any sport in particular. For athletes and teams in the national spotlight, it's about using their platform to get the country to pay attention.
If you don't speak out now, what are people going to say about you? Yeah, that was what was great about yesterday.
Professional athletes using their platform to protest racial inequality is nothing new. The first time it happened was during the 1968 Olympics, when two African-American runners raised their fists during the national anthem to bring attention to the human rights movement.
This is 2020. We're no better. It's still, racism still is, as American as apple pie, unfortunately. What do we do to keep these people from not wanting to protest or walk off the basketball court or the football field? What do we do?
A profound question that professional sports and the rest of the nation continues to grapple with. In Boston, Massachusetts, I'm Chris Conte.
Still ahead in our lineup, new vaccines can come with side effects. Experts talk about the risks as well as the benefits.
A new petition by a local advocacy group calls for the city of Indianapolis to keep many of its now vacant Blue Indy spaces. Now, Blue Indy electric cars stopped service in March after saying it was no longer economically viable in Indianapolis. The petition by the Hoosier Electric Vehicle Association is asking the city to preserve at least 50 of the charging stations and upgrade the hardware at each one. The city's deadline for submission for ideas for the spots passed last week, and city officials say it's likely there will be different solutions for different neighborhoods across Marion County. And a new hotel opened its doors today in Carmel. The Hotel Carmichael is a 122-room, 6-story luxury hotel located next to the Palladium. We are told the first guest has already checked in. The hotel also houses a new French restaurant. Construction began in 2018. It was originally scheduled to open in the spring of this year, but delays due to COVID-19 pushed it back until now. Also due to COVID-19, all employees will wear face covering as part of their uniform.
One COVID vaccine in development right now may be ready for review in December. Executives at Novavax say they are enrolling volunteers for a second phase of clinical trials now. The data should be ready for review within just a few months. Phase 1 data showed the 2-dose vaccine in healthy adults produced antibodies in all participants. Tenderness and pain were the most frequent local symptoms. When the first COVID-19 vaccines are approved, we won't know a whole lot about their safety.
We're going to learn as we go along. There are numerous case studies in our experience where as vaccines were rolled out, we were quite confident with the safety profile, but that evolves.
And I think that these vaccines will be safe in the sense that they won't cause at least a serious or permanent adverse event when tested in 10,000, 15,000, 20,000 people. And hopefully that will also be true post-approval when it's seen in 20 million or 30 million people.
Based on other vaccine history, a COVID vaccine will likely produce some sort of adverse reaction. It could be minor, typical injection site issues, or something more serious. Back in the 50s, the very first massive polio vaccination program was stopped because it paralyzed some children and killed a handful. In the 70s, the swine flu vaccine caused a very small amount of rare neurological cases. There are other issues like an allergic reaction or seizure. Still though, experts say vaccines are one of the greatest advances in modern medicine in preventing unnecessary deaths.
There is no better cost-effective intervention that medical science has to offer, with the exception of safe water and sanitation. So when you look at our life expectancy, vaccines have been incredibly important.
The Vaccine Injury Litigation Clinic handles cases of vaccine-related injuries and deaths. They have on average just over 600 people a year receive payouts from the National Vaccine Injury Compensation Program. But they admit vaccine injuries are still rare compared to the overall numbers of administered vaccines each year. The CDC says for every 1 million doses of vaccine that were distributed, one person was compensated. More to get to on our lineup. Criticisms about how much CEOs are making right now. A reality check on their pay as many Americans are out of work. The coronavirus pandemic is having a unique impact on rural America. Ashley Sampson is at an orchard facing a worker shortage at a critical time.
Farm life isn't easy, but sometimes that life picks you.
Oh, I don't know about that. When we were little boys, I think it was my dad pushing us out the door all the time. But as you get older and it gets in your blood, you seem to stay around.
Curtis Rowley is a fourth-generation farmer in rural Utah.
Here to the side of us, we have a tart cherry orchard. On this side, we have a gala block, apples.
But peaches are his specialty.
Not by color, not by size. I cut them open and I smell them.
Knowledge passed down through his family taught him how to dodge the always humming farm equipment.
We got a mower here and a tractor here, so.
He knows what to do when Mother Nature turns on the AC.
We try to prevent frost in the spring by being up on the benches.
But there are some things that even a seasoned farming family can't plan for.
We were still pruning when the COVID-19 pandemic hit.
Like many in this business, they rely on outside help for planting, pruning, and harvesting.
No quería andar aquí con el barco.
Rowley uses the H-2A government program. It allows him to bring in foreign nationals to fill the temporary agricultural jobs.
As they shut down all that border shutdown and everything in the end of March, our guys happened to be right there at the border at the time.
He says luckily the group got through. But now it's the harvest and all hands on deck time. He's feeling the pinch.
It's really tight. I won't say it's perfect.
The window for picking doesn't stay open for long.
Somewhere between 3, maybe 4 days, if that.
He's tried other options like offering jobs to people furloughed or laid off.
And they'll say, can we come and help a little bit? But as soon as their job opens back up, they go back to that. And that's understandable.
And unfortunately, harvest time is also back to school time.
To hire high school kids or that age group to say we're going to pick apples, it's just not going to happen. When I fill it...
Rowley says he will squeeze through the fall harvest, but others won't be as lucky.
Yeah, there's a lot of people looking for help still.
As for the future, this farmer says his family will remain planted.
We're planning on being here, farming, and continuing to grow this fruit, yes.
Ready to weather whatever storm comes their way. In Santaquin, Utah, I'm Ashley Sampson reporting.
And there are heroes in all walks of life, but today the Indianapolis Colts took time today to celebrate some heroes who put their lives on the line for us every day. Members of the organization delivered pizza to a team of paramedics and their colleagues at Indianapolis Fire Station 26 on the city's south side. Colts Ring of Honor inductee and former receiver Bill Brooks was on the hand for the celebration. Paramedics Chad White and Hope Caricio also won autographed footballs. White's wife nominated the pair to win the special delivery.
People cheer for the athletic heroes out there in the football field, but these are heroes out here in the community doing tremendous work and helping individuals and being there for the community when the community really needs them during this time.
And throughout the 2020 training camp, fans could nominate a hero who has really stepped up to serve their friends and neighbors during this challenging time. Today was the result of that competition. Kyle.
And who doesn't love a little bit of pizza, right? Sounding good for dinner. All right, we've got those clouds that are in place across central Indiana. And as Amanda mentioned earlier, it looked a little bit like rain. We had a few of those showers, but they pretty much all moved out of central Indiana now. We were just left with the clouds and 82 degrees in Indy, 86 for you in Lafayette. A little more sunshine breaking through there in Bloomington and 83. That wind, though, it's still out of the southwest, so it's still bringing in that warm and humid air. So even though the temperature may not be in the 90s, it feels like it. Feels like 92 in Greencastle right now, 96 in Lafayette for the heat index, and close to 100 is what it feels like in the Bedford area. Tomorrow morning, as kids are heading off to the bus stop, it's going to be warm and muggy there too. 75, we'll have cloudy skies, and as we head home in the afternoon, in the middle 80s. I think we may want to take along that umbrella, though, as we will have a few showers and thunderstorms in the forecast. TrueCast mid-morning on Friday shows we'll just have more cloud cover around. But as we get into the heat of the afternoon, start to see a few of those showers and storms developing and popping up here. Again, we'll have the remnants of Laura basically passing off to our south, and then a cold front moving in from the northwest. This is a look at TrueCast tomorrow evening, and you can see any of those showers and storms moving on off to the east. For the most part, we're only talking about a quarter of an inch or less of rainfall, with temperatures making their way into the middle 80s. 7-day planning forecast, the weekend much improved here. Temperatures will cool off a little bit, and that humidity will start to drop as we go into Saturday afternoon and throughout the day on Sunday. In fact, Sunday we start off in the upper 50s. Next week, we're highs in the lower 80s with that daily chance for showers and storms. Dan?
Even with unemployment still high, we're learning compensation for executives is growing. This also comes as CEOs continue to cut millions of jobs. Alicia Nieves is looking into just how significant the growth is and why it may be hurting the entire workforce.
While more than 50 million Americans have lost their jobs over the past 5 months, and many are still struggling to make ends meet, those running some of the biggest companies in this country are thriving.
We find that a CEO now earns about 320 times that of a typical worker in their main industry.
Lawrence Michel is a labor economist and fellow at the Economic Policy Institute, an independent think tank in Washington, D.C. Michel just authored a report analyzing CEO compensation. It shows, first, how headlines in March and April of CEOs cutting their salaries during the economic downturn wasn't as big of a sacrifice as it seemed.
Salaries make up about 5% of the total compensation package. It seems like even when the CEOs say they are making a sacrifice, it's really, I think, better for press releases than in the actually that they're going to take a cut in their standard of living.
But more eye-opening, the report shows how CEO compensation growth is affecting and has affected workers everywhere.
If you look at CEO compensation since over the last 4 decades, back in 1978, CEO compensation grew 1,167%. The compensation of a typical worker grew 13 or 14% over that period.
What is more, the report shows CEO compensation increased by 14% just last year and is set to continue to go up this year, even in a recession with companies having to let go of millions of workers.
The wages of the vast majority, the bottom 90%, has grown only half as fast as it otherwise would had the top 1% not really expanded like it did.
Essentially, the profit pie has not grown proportionate to CEO compensation growth. So as CEOs are getting significantly higher raises, it's taking from other workers' ability to get the same.
I think this is a problem of corporate governance. It's a problem of our tax policies. And it needs to be addressed like that.
Proposed solutions include capping CEO compensation and taxing everything above the cap, to allowing shareholders and company workers to directly have a say in their CEO's pay. But both solutions are as controversial as the problem. I'm Alicia Nieves reporting.
A new app will notify drivers if their vehicle has a recall. It's a first for the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, which is making the free Safer Car app available today. Just put in your VIN number and you'll get alerts if any recalls apply to you. The app also works for child seats, trailers, as well as tires. Starbucks is joining efforts to encourage voter turnout. The company says its baristas won't have to choose between work and voting. It's part of a nonpartisan coalition of more than 700 other companies working to make it easier for employees to cast their ballot. Student-led political groups are changing tactics to get out the college vote. They're hosting live streams, sharing content on social media, and facilitating virtual internships with local candidates. Groups are also offering guidance on how to vote with absentee ballots, especially if students have to go home from campus.
I think that's something that a lot of people at different campuses are really worried about, because those absentee ballot request forms and absentee ballots are not forwardable.
Roughly half of students recently polled say they plan to vote by mail. Experts say students should read up on their state's voting laws, check their registrations, and make a voting plan. Finally, in our lineup, tens of thousands of students rely on federal work-study to pay for college. The questions families should be asking to make sure they can keep getting this support safely. Facebook says it's cracking down on militia pages as well as extremist groups. This follows calls on social media for armed vigilantes to go to Kenosha and protect businesses during protests. Facebook has now taken down one group called Kenosha Guard. It was initially criticized for not addressing the page, which encouraged supporters to come, quote, locked and loaded. Work-study jobs are an important part of affording college for many students. The pandemic is limiting access to that work, with schools having to keep adjusting to COVID and the job market taking a hit. More than 600,000 students receive federal work-study, according to the latest numbers. On average, they get nearly $1,800. In the spring, the U.S. Department of Education encouraged schools to keep paying students even if they weren't working on campus. But a group that supports student employees says they don't anticipate that same flexibility from the government for the fall. Now schools are trying to get creative.
I think some of the innovation that we've seen is one, how do we leverage technology to assist in the process of students being able to get connected in ways that maybe previously we relied on some of those campus interactions.
He says workplace safety is also something students need to consider right now if they can do a job in person. You need to know who your advocates are on campus so you don't end up in an uncomfortable situation.
I think sometimes students get put in a place where they feel like they may not have a choice. And unfortunately, they feel like they have to choose my health over my well-being from a job standpoint or financial standpoint.
If you're concerned about federal work-study for yourself or someone in your family, first get in touch with the Financial Aid Office. They'll help you with your options. Then get in contact with Career Services or the Student Employment Office so they can connect you to work opportunities. As the months-long pandemic weighs on families, some are deciding they need a quick getaway or vacation. But when people post vacation photos online, they're getting criticized for taking a trip during COVID. Tomorrow, what effect experts say trip shaming really has on people's travel plans.
We've been talking about it and you've been feeling it, all that humidity that we've had for much of the week. Well, we've got one more day of it, and then this weekend, the humidity takes a big hit in a good way for us. It will feel fairly refreshing as we go the second half of our Saturday and especially on Sunday, with temperatures following suit here. Just 83 degrees by Saturday afternoon, 79 on Sunday, and next week we'll keep those highs in the lower 80s with that daily chance of showers and storms returning. Thanks for joining us at 5:30.